Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Alert Ops Incident Management Cafe. I am Eric Myers. I'm joined by Cam and Bob. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello,
Hey, Eric,
Eric.
glad to be here.
Yeah, good to have you guys. How you been?
Oh, ready for the new year.
Cool. Well, I know it's towards the end of the year, guys. A lot of people are just analyzing budgets, looking to see how the year went, where it came from. So we're hearing a lot about the recession, whether it's coming off of it or going into it. But coming into the next couple of years, a lot of people are kind of fear about the recession coming along and where it's going to put them. So I just kind of wanted to discuss, the recession in regards to the IT teams moving forward. So what are some of your thoughts on that coming into the next year?
So far, we see a lot of these big tech companies laying off large portions of their tech teams, right? Whether that's a Google or a Microsoft or a Twitter. But with that said, they don't seem like they've been positioned as gearing up for a recession, right? It doesn't look like a lot of the staple Fortune 500s beyond big tech is really gearing up for that. So the impact on the broader market, I think, definitely is a little bit scary, and for everyone from like retailers to consumers are scared. But it doesn't look like IT teams have really started that downsizing. Whether it'll come or not is still yet to be told. Bob, any thoughts there?
Yeah, from what I've been reading, a lot of the talk of recession is speculative right now, and I'm not an expert. I wouldn't pretend to analyze any of it, but from what I've seen, though, about like the large companies you mentioned, Cam, it's more investor related stuff. In other words, they're saying, hey, the market capitalization of these companies has dropped. Let's do something to respond, because those companies are actually supposed to be turning profits today. So that's what it is. It's the large companies, and who knows? Some of it could be due to when you look at it, there was a big bubble, during the pandemic, actually, because of the shift to more of a digital economy, ordering online, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Remote work probably had some kind of an impact in there. I'm not sure. So I think, we're coming out of that. Plus the stimulus money. Governments around the world, central banks were pumping money, printing money, and that's always inflationary, and it causes a surge and a drop. So, yeah, but I agree, Cam. I don't think we're really seeing it across the board.
Mhm.
There's a lot of demand right now for tech in the hiring space.
hmm Yeah, absolutely. And I think that um, with that said, right, there's a bunch of demand, and I personally feel that if it were to come, right, we would start seeing kind of the signs a little bit earlier, right, a few months prior. But with that said, even if it does come, I think that with remote work and COVID having hit us just recently, the notion that IT teams and technology teams just in general are more geared to handle some of these outlier events, right? Some things that we're not necessarily expecting on our day to day. So whether that's a reduced workforce or whether that is remote work, I think that the foundation with a lot of the digital transformation that organizations have gone throughout COVID and remote work have laid that foundation for us to be better equipped, or them to be better equipped during a recession.
Yeah, I
Yeah, and I
agree. I
think,
mean, it kind of played into it with the history, like you said, the pandemic, a lot more remote workforce, and no one has a crystal ball. I mean, they're not going to tell anybody like, "Oh, it's coming on this day, this time, this hour. Be prepared." But essentially, it almost did prepare us with the pandemic before. So
someone's always predicting the end of the world, right? And
exactly,
someday, somebody will get it right someday, but it hasn't happened yet. But
exactly.
yeah, what I do want to just touch on what Cam said. So, and Eric, what both of you said, I think that a lot of adjustments have already been made by companies of all sizes because of the pandemic, and especially remote work. There's other ways to save money. Reduced office space, etc. So, yeah, I think we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah. Well, what about specifically in regards to incident response? I mean, with smaller teams, do you think that's going to have an impact on that as far as getting people impacted by the response times or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that technology that we were discussing definitely helps. But with that said, having one less person when, stuff hits the fan is still one less person to deal with it. Right. And I think that from the concept of a major incident, right, an all hands on deck scenario, having less people is somewhat detrimental, right? In some cases, where you would need to be able to distribute the level of work, even if that work just comes down to triage, right? If you need 4 people to classify what an incident is, because each person has to jump into 5 different systems to take a look, at that point, operating with 3 people is definitely a constraint.
Yeah, and probably orgs need to get better at prioritization. That's another thing. And again, if you can kind of automate that, if you have systems in place and be able to can figure out, hey, this is a P3, this is a P4, and we're gonna know you and alert you about P1s and P2s, and we're gonna remind you about those guys, right? That's triage essentially is in, right? Figure out where your priorities are, and then shift your work accordingly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even the progression of technology, people aren't going around in horse and buggies anymore. They have cars driving around, and just that implementation of all that with the automation, and what are some of the new things with the automation they can do to kind of help that?
Personally, I think there's a lot, right? And I think that the nerd in me gets very, very giddy when I think about that, because even though I haven't done half of it, I think that there's a large amount of people that exist automating their jobs today, whether it's RPA
Yeah.
tools, whether it's the ability to connect between different systems via the cloud, whatever that looks like. I think that predominantly the solutions for automation, right? Everything from what we do, right? What the small space that we operate in, we automate downstream actions, but we actually automate notifications, right? That's a crux of what we do. And that small piece of automation makes such a big impact on organizations. Now, let's kick that a step further. We got RPA tools, we have auto healing tools, right? Monitoring tools that can kick off auto remediation scripts and then only tell you if it fails to fix it by itself. So that I think that the presence of these tools in the market today definitely makes the concept of a reduced workforce substantially more digestible.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that it's sort of a progression, right? I mean, I think more orgs can probably be forced to look at more ways to automate things, right? When you don't have the luxury of somebody sitting around clicking that button, click, 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 and then it's just simple common sense, right? If 99.9% when you have this exact problem, you do this response. If it can be automated, do it, right? And again, the human resources are very valuable for other things besides just the incident response. Sometimes it could be, especially in the case of MSPs, we hear a lot about the role of the responder in the customer relationship. Right? We've talked about that in some other incident management cafes. So again, it's a matter of making better use of your human resources as much as you can. That's one thing that automation is. Sometimes there's a fear of automation. We don't want to be Luddites, right? Smashing our technology, but there's a place for everything.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like regardless of recession or not, IT companies, organizations, MSPs are positioned to do fairly well no matter what happens. So if anything, they look like they're going to be on the growth of next year.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things, Bob, that you just said is very interesting, right? We want to make the most of what we have, and that was actually the topic of a webinar that I was doing with Humanize IT and Vonda High Security earlier this week. And we had discussed with the concept of potential recession, right? Or even in the case that your organization isn't impacted financially. With that said, you're definitely taking it a little bit easy on your wallet there, right? The operational expenditures, as far as new tools, et cetera, aren't going to be as rampant. And I think that the future of what we're going to see in IT, and I think that as much as I may disagree with some of it, Elon Musk at Twitter did was identify how we can do the most with what we have, right? What do we need to accomplish what we would like to accomplish rather than having as many resources as possible to cover the job? how can I make 5 people's worth of work today be achievable by 3 people tomorrow? And I think that's with the reduced workforce and financial constraints in mind, that's really where the IT industry is going to be at.
Yep, I agree. Well, great, guys. I appreciate the quick chat here and the talk points. Gives us lots to think about. So I hope you guys have a great holiday and Happy New Year.
Awesome.
You too.
Thank you both.
All right. Thanks,
Till the
guys.
next one. Thanks. Bye.